Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I have been playing with this idea back and forth for a while, and I finally decided to just go ahead and do it. So basically, in today's video, I am going to be going through and answering your piercing questions. Now, if you guys have been subscribed to me for quite a long time, you know I always used to have my messages open where you guys could contact me, ask me questions about your piercing, and I would answer them for you. Very quickly, I made the decision to not do that anymore just because I thought it was very irresponsible of me to have people come to me as opposed to going to a piercer. I still recommend people to go to a professional licensed body piercer if you do have any concerning questions, but I figured, you know, I can try to help people just based off my general knowledge, and I decided, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it. So I asked you guys on my BreeAnn Barbie Facebook page. If you guys have not liked my Facebook page yet, it is linked in the description box. Just go on there, give it a like, and you guys can see updates about future videos that I have coming out, or just updates about my life in general. Or we have opportunities like this where I go on and I ask you guys, you know, let me answer your piercing questions. So that's what we're going to be doing today. I do have quite a few questions on my Facebook page. Now, I'm not going to answer all of them, obviously, because then we would be sitting here for like 3 hours, and we don't need to do that. But I'm going to answer the ones that I feel like would be most beneficial to you guys, and the ones that I can answer myself for sure. I do just want to say a few little disclaimers before we get going. One, and I did make the same disclaimers on my Facebook page as well, but one, I am not a professional body piercer. Two, I am only going to answer your questions based off my own personal experience and general knowledge of piercings. Three, any serious infections and or concerns should be brought to the attention of a licensed body piercer, not some girl that you watch on YouTube. And number four, I am not claiming to diagnose and or heal your piercings. I am just here to help try to lead you guys in the right direction as far as healing goes, or just answer some general questions that you have about piercing. So with all those little disclaimers out of the way, let's get reading. So the very first question is from Tara Penny, and she asks, has the daith piercing helped your migraines? I get bad ones and I want the daith piercing for my migraines and just wondered if it works. Thanks, hon. You're welcome. And I actually did a video on this when I got my daith pierce, and I honestly don't know if it helps or not, because at the same time that I got my daith piercing, I also got off of a specific birth control brand, and at the time that birth control brand was giving me really, really bad migraines. So I really don't know if it was the birth control that did it or if it was the piercing that did it. You know what I mean? So I can't say for sure, but a lot of other people have testified and said that, yeah, the daith piercing does get rid of migraines. So, I mean, there's no harm in trying. If you get it and it works, cool. If you get it and it doesn't work, at least you have a cute new piercing. The next question is from Dahlia Kufer. I think that's how you say that. And she asks, I've had an industrial piercing for 4 years and it flares up from time to time. It's never been infected, just swollen a little. What are your thoughts? And someone replied to it and said that I wouldn't know the answer to this because I've never had an industrial piercing. You guys, an industrial piercing is not any different than a helix piercing. Industrial piercings are more or less just glorified helix piercings, if you know what I mean. And another thing you have to keep in mind is we sleep on our ears, we sleep on our sides, we have long hair, so our hair gets caught in them. So honestly, I think it is very normal to have a ear piercing kind of flare up every once in a while. No, I don't think it's infected. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Usually when that does happen, I just spend a little extra time kind of babying them again, and that seems to help. Just doing like warm compresses, cleaning them really good in the shower, you know, kind of wearing my hair up for a few days if they are having a little bit of a flare up, just to let them kind of air out and things like that. I get the exact same issue with my helix piercings. Every once in a while, it doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter, like, they just sometimes will just flare up and get really, really angry. The next question is from Alicia, I think that's how you say that, and she said, I have been struggling with a bump on my helix piercing for a while. I have tried tea tree oil. Any suggestions on how to make it go away? Yes, keloids and hypertrophic scars and those little piercing bumps are not my friend. They are not anyone's friend. They are such a pain in the ass, so I definitely know the struggle. Usually tea tree oil does help, but sometimes if that doesn't work, the other top two things that I like to try is really warm compresses on them, or a sea salt paste, and I actually did do a video on my sea salt paste if you guys are interested. It is a much older video. I filmed it years ago, but it's literally the exact same technique. I still use it to this day. A lot of piercers don't like it because it can be very drying. That's one thing that you do have to keep in mind, is if you do it too often, it will dry out the piercing and cause other complications. If you are curious to know all about the sea salt paste method, I will go ahead and link that up in the corner so you guys can go and check that out. That is something that has really helped me, and it is also something that has really helped a lot of my other viewers as well. They said it really works for them. The next one is from Neely, and she asked, what is your opinion on getting nipples re-pierced? Any tips on how to make the pain more bearable? Thanks. You're welcome. And if you've had your nipples pierced before and you took them out and you are looking to get them redone again, I don't see any issue with that. I would just, go to a piercer, kind of have a little bit of a consultation, let them know that you've had your nipples pierced before. One thing I will say though is if you have had them pierced before and you want to do it again, you should really just prepare for them to be a little bit more painful, because there is going to be scar tissue left over from the previous piercings, and it might make them a little bit more painful. And honestly, there's really nothing you can do as far as getting a piercing and not having it hurt, if that makes sense. Like, if you get a piercing, it's going to hurt, but the only thing I can really say is it only lasts a minute and it's done, it's over with, and you have a new piercing. So that is one thing to look forward to. Next question is from Melissa, and she asked, how long do tongue piercings take to heal, and what is the pain level on a scale of 1 to 10? I want to get one, but I'm scared of the pain. Honestly, and I'm not going to speak for everybody, that's one thing, is people always ask, oh, how bad did that hurt on a scale of 1 to 10? And, I can tell you an answer, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the same for you, if that makes sense, because piercings are a very personal journey for everybody. The pain is different for everybody, so you really don't know until you go and get it yourself. Honestly, for me, my tongue was maybe like a 2 or 3 out of 10. It really didn't hurt as bad as I thought it was going to, and I thought it was going to hurt like a bitch, but it didn't. And I would say it took maybe about a month and a half to 110% heal. I was able to switch down from the really long bar after about 2 weeks, and after a month, I felt like fully confident that it was completely healed, if that makes sense. The next question is from Desmond Clater, and they asked, do you feel like belly button piercings ever truly heal? Every now and then I still get flare-ups of it being sore, red, aching, and even pus. It's been 4 years. Wow, that's not good. I do feel like belly buttons do fully heal. Granted, they do take a very, very long time to heal, and I will forever stand by that statement. People who say they get a belly button piercing and it heals within a month, first of all, that's fucking bullshit. That's against all fucking human science. There is no way you can get a surface piercing and have it heal that quickly, because you got to remember they heal from the outside in. So just because it looks good from the outside doesn't necessarily mean that it is healed on the inside, you know what I mean? So having it, flare up still with pus and things like that after 4 years, probably not good. I would say there's maybe a jewelry issue. I would try maybe using a different style of jewelry. If you're using something really heavy and dangly, I would maybe kind of back off from that. Try something a little bit more high-end, whether that be gold or titanium or something of that sort. It's maybe a little bit more expensive. This question is from Carrie West, and they asked, when it comes to oral hygiene, do you use any extra steps to keep your mouth and piercing healthy? And yes, I do. I feel like, especially with tongue piercings, there's this thing called calcium buildup that can happen on the tongue piercing bar, and it can make it kind of, yucky. So every once in a while, I will completely take out first I'll brush my teeth and my tongue with it in, and then I will completely take out my tongue ring. I will wash it with antibacterial soap, and I will make sure, because sometimes when you unscrew the bottom ball of your tongue ring, you will see a little ring of kind of like gunk on the top of it. I know it's gross, but it's reality. So I will quickly just brush that, and then I will go back and brush my tongue without my tongue ring in. And next question is from Sophia, and she asks, I've had my nipples pierced for about a year now, and one gets crusty and super dry. I use vitamin E oil to try to help. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But do you ever have that problem? Why does it even happen? Thank you, love you. I love you too. And honestly, like with nipple piercings, those little crusties that you're experiencing is totally and 100% normal. Most piercers will tell you this. That's just kind of the norm with nipple piercings. Yes, it does still happen to me every once in a while, but it's not really anything to be concerned about unless the Crusties are a really dark green, yellow, just really disturbing color, that's not okay. But if it's just like little bits of Crusties every once in a while, just rinse them off in the shower, and you know, I wouldn't worry too much about it unless of course it's causing you any sort of pain or discomfort or whatever the case may be. Then I would be a little more concerned, but you know, I don't know why it happens. It's a nipple ring type thing. I've known people who have had their nipples pierced for 5 years and it still happens to them. The next question is from Cheyenne, and she asks, if your piercing bleeds 6 months after getting it done, does it mean that it just didn't heal right? And I mean, I guess that kind of all depends on what the piercing is, because some piercings are a little bit more like, what's the word, like intense than others. Like, you know, a nipple piercing is a lot more intense than, you know, a nose piercing or whatever, like just kind of comparing it like that. So I guess it really kind of depends on the piercing. I wouldn't necessarily say that it didn't heal right, because it very well could still be healing. For example, sometimes my helix piercings up here, sometimes those little fuckers still get caught and bleed on things, and I've had those for 6 months, but that doesn't necessarily mean they didn't heal right. That just means they're still healing, and if I knock it the right way, they're gonna bleed. I wish I knew what piercing you were talking about, and then maybe I could answer your question a little bit more thoroughly, but as far as that, just kind of all depends. The next question is from Michelle, and she asked, I've had my tragus piercing for 2 years, and I've been wearing a regular earring in it. I was wondering if I can put a 14 gauge labret in it because the back of the earring keeps falling off. Just curious, by the way, love you girly. Love you too, and definitely I would not recommend using a regular earring in a tragus piercing. Coming from personal experience, because I've done the exact same thing, and 10 out of 10 would not recommend for sure. One thing is, if you want to put a 14 gauge in, and you have a regular earring in it, so if you're talking about like a regular butterfly back earring in your tragus, then that's got to be like 20 to 22 gauge, and if you want to put a 14 gauge in, you got to do a lot of stretching. You can't just go from taking a little butterfly back earring from Claire's out and shoving a 14 gauge in, because one, it's not going to go in very easily, and two, it's going to hurt like a bitch. So if 14 gauge is something that you want to go for, I would definitely start off by going from 22 to 20 to 18 to 16, then to 14, because that's not going to be an overnight process for sure. That would definitely hurt. So I'm pretty sure that's what you're talking about. I could be wrong, but that's just what my recommendation would be, is just to start off and work your way up. Next question is from Emily, and they ask, I've been waiting for one of these, clap emoji. I'm not someone who's ever been interested in stretching my ears, much less looked into it. However, I do want to wear some 16 gauge barbells in my helix piercing that are 20 to 22 gauge right now. How would you go about stretching from a 20 to 22 gauge to something like a 16? Because I can't seem to even go from a 20 to an 18 painlessly. And I totally see what you're talking about, and it kind of goes along with the last question that I answered, is you really want to start off small. If you're at a 22 right now, you need to go from 22, 20, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10, you know, down that line. One thing that I will say is use something like jojoba oil or something that has kind of like a natural lubrication to it. I wouldn't use anything thick. Like jojoba oil would work really well for that. So take the 22 out, grab a 20, kind of lube it up, put it in, leave it in for a couple days, take it out, take the 18, kind of lube it up a little bit, kind of slowly push it in. You don't want to force it because you don't want to irritate the piercing at all. That's another thing, is make sure that whatever you are changing it to, make sure that piercing is fully healed, because I can't imagine trying to stretch a piercing while it's new. You know what I'm saying? So make sure it is fully healed, but that is something that I would recommend. Make sure everything is clean. Make sure you have the jewelry all lined up in order so you're not skipping a size, because that can really hurt. The next question is from Isabella, and they ask, how do you put a ring in your conch? Every one I have ever got, the opening is not big enough to fit over my ear to the hole, and sadly a ring was my dream setup. And I know what you're saying, but seriously, like honestly, do not give up. The reason why is because the diameter of that ring that you're using is not big enough. Sometimes, because everyone has different shaped ears, right? So you have to find a diameter that is going to fit over your ear and into the hole. Now, I know it's a lot of trial and error, especially if you're not asking anyone, if you're just doing it yourself. It can be a lot of trial and error, so just kind of, you know, take the size that you got, kind of guesstimate how much bigger you need it to be, and get a ring that is that much bigger in diameter. That way when you get it, it should slide right in with no problems. The next question is from Bianca, and they said, so I have an industrial piercing I've had for quite some time, like at least 5 years, and when I twist it or play with it, for some reason it has a weird ear cheese smell. Is there any way to get rid of that for good since it is a healed piercing? Thanks if you answer this. Love ya. Love you too. And honestly, it's not uncommon, that smell that you're talking about. I know a lot of people who have their ears stretched. Sometimes they experience a smell like that. One thing that I would recommend is maybe doing daily cleaning in the shower. Not saying that you don't, but if you don't, that's something that I would try. Whether that be, because you said it's healed. Yeah. So since it's healed, you know, if you're washing your hair, take a little bit of leftover shampoo and just kind of scrub the area a little bit. Just kind of keep it clean. When you get out of the shower, this is what I do with all of my piercings to kind of avoid that. Because obviously when you take a shower, you're getting wet, and when you step out of the shower, your ears are still wet. So what I do is I take a Q-tip and I make sure to dry around every single ball of every single ear piercing that I have. That just kind of gets all of the water out, so the water doesn't collect there and kind of get that smell. Because that's when I noticed it the most, is when I wasn't cleaning the water away from my ear piercings, if that makes sense. So that is one thing that I would recommend trying. If after that it still doesn't work, try higher end jewelry, because sometimes that can help as well. The next question is from Elaine, and she said, so I've watched every possible video about septum piercings and I still got it pierced wrong. Last week I got it fixed. Was the healing any different the second time you got your septum pierced? Because I'm feeling that this is a little bit worse than the first time. So basically this girl had the exact same experience that I had. When I first got my septum pierced, I was pierced really low down here in the lower cartilage. And maybe about a year later, I went and got it fixed. So it is obviously pierced up higher. Now, my experience with that is the first time I had it pierced, which was done incorrectly, that hurt terribly. And then the second time I went and got it done, that was a lot better. So, I mean, I guess it's just how your body is reacting to the piercing. But for me, the second time around, the healing was a lot better and a lot easier, as opposed to the first time it was extremely painful. So it just kind of all depends on your body. I would just kind of hold, like I would soak 2 cotton balls in sea salt water, make sure the ratios are right between the salt and the water, kind of soak them in there and just kind of hold it up in your piercing. That'll kind of soothe it, clean it, and maybe take away that pain a little bit. Next question that I thought was pretty interesting was from Lexi, and she asked, I just got my Tragus Pierce. Is it normal to have the side of your head hurt a little? And I found this interesting because I've definitely heard of this happening before. I have never personally had it happen to me, but you're definitely not the first one that I've heard this from. And I wouldn't say it's uncommon. I wish I knew how long you've had it pierced. Like, is it really, really new, or has it been a couple months? Like, I don't really know the time frame of this, but I mean, I can see why, because the tragus is a very small part of your ear, and when they put the clamps on, you know, they're kind of pulling and tugging and things like that. So, and your ear is kind of connected to everything else going on up in here. So I can see how it would make your head hurt. I would just keep an eye on it. If you notice it not getting better or it's getting worse, go see your doctor. And then the last question that I'm going to answer for this video, because my camera keeps stopping because it is overheating. It is like 86 degrees in this room, and I have lights on, I have microphones, I have everything going on, so my camera just can't handle the heat right now. So I'm just going to answer one more question for this video, and that is from Ellen, I think that's how you say it. And she asked, what is the best way to clean the inside of an unhealed forward helix? I'm having such a hard time cleaning the inside because I have a very short stud in my forward helix. Love your videos. Well, thank you very much. And my one kind of red flag with this is you said it's unhealed. So does that mean you just got it freshly done and they put a very short stud in, or did you change it too early with a very short stud? Because either one of those scenarios could be very bad. What I would recommend is go to your piercer or go to the shop that you got pierced at and have them put a longer barbell in. Especially if it is still very new, you are going to be experiencing a lot of swelling, and the last thing that you want is to have a really short barbell in there, because what could happen is you're going to be trapping all of those fluids that need to come out to help it to heal. And if you're trapping them, that can lead to a really serious infection, Or another big problem that you run into is actually having the skin grow over the piercing, and then you have to go and have it surgically removed. You don't want either of those things to happen, so my biggest recommendation for you is to go and have a longer barbell put in. Once you do that, one, you're going to feel so much better, and two, it is going to be a lot easier to clean it, because once you use the soap or whatever, you'll very slightly be able to feel it move back and forth, and that'll kind of help clean the inside of it. Okay guys, and that is everything that I have for answering your piercing questions. I actually had a lot of fun filming this, more fun than I thought I was going to have, so if you guys want to see another video like this, make sure you go down in the comments and let me know if you want to see another answering your piercing questions. But other than that, if you guys enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, go down and give me a huge thumbs up. If you are new here and this is the first video of mine that you are seeing, I just want to welcome you. I have a very saturated channel full of tattoo and piercing stuff, so if that is something that interests you, make sure you go down and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future videos. I love you guys so, so much. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you very soon in my next video. I love you guys.